In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to code your new F-150 cylinder to match your existing key. Here, we'll take a look at the parts we're going to use and we'll get them organized to make the setup quite a bit easier. Once we're all set up, we're just going to quickly open up the parts so we have them ready to go, because depending on your key, we're going to need a mix and match of all of these different key wafers. They're going to line up with the edges of the key and they're all coded differently. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our internal cylinder, and then we are going to fill the wafers with the grease, the wafer slots. So get in where the springs go, fill that with the grease. These need to be packed, but you can be generous with it. Flip it over to the other side, fill the spring holes again with the grease. It's going to help keep the springs in there while you work, but it's also going to provide necessary grease for the ignition not to get bunged up. We're going to cut into the springs back here and get them ready. I recommend just putting them in one at a time to avoid potentially dropping them and losing them. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a key wafer. You can start with any number because we're kind of going by elimination here. So I'll show you essentially what to do is you're going to put it in there so that the tab sticks onto the spring. Then you're going to stick the key in, and essentially if it's the right wafer, the wafer will go flush with the internal cylinder. So one is not correct. It's still sticking up above. So we'll go and try number 2 as well. And number 2, not quite flush. So we'll try number 3. Get it in there. There we go. That's the one. So once it's flush, you're going to go in there. So I'll just quickly go through here, and I'm trying all of the different ones in each hole to get them all flush. And as soon as I got them in there and ready, I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So once again, the step is spring, key wafer, test. And then you're going to remove the wafer until you have the correct one so that they're all flush. Let's just skip ahead through here. Now, you can see here when I stick the key in, we've got all the wafers in there. They're all flush, and it turns in the ignition, no problem. That's how we know we've got a good, properly coded cylinder. Now, we'll finish it off with a little bit of more grease. Make sure the springs and everything is nice and good in there. Coat that good on both sides. With the key in there, you can see all of our key wafers are nice and flush, so we've correctly coated the cylinder ignition. Now we just have to assemble the ignition, and then we can install it in the truck. So you're going to find the outside piece of your cylinder ignition, and you're going to line it up so that obviously the key insert lines up with the key insert of the ignition. You kind of gotta, you can use the tool that it comes with, but you can kind of slide them in there. And once you've got it in there and the spring's all compressed, you then should be able to easily turn your ignition with your key. If you can't, your code is obviously not correct. You'll have to try to wiggle it around, but you can see my key turns back and forth very loosely in here, meaning that my code is correct. With this assembled, we'll remove the old ignition. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to find the screws under the steering column shroud. I believe they're 7 mils, and we're just going to take those guys out. So we'll just grab our impact gun here and pull those out. A little bit awkward anytime you're working under the dash. Once those are out, then we can pry the upper and the lower part off. Get that screw out of there, it's kind of fighting me. There we are. And they're still going to be clipped together, so sometimes you can carefully get in there with your fingers or a screwdriver, but this one's kind of tight in there, so I'll just grab a little pick. And what we'll do is we'll just try to get into a spot that, we're not going to damage, and just try to wiggle it off because we don't want to score it too bad. And once you kind of get it apart, you can kind of pry them apart a little bit. Once they snap apart, then you can kind of use your fingers just to do the rest. Sorry for the awkward film work here. We can slip the top out of the way, and then we can grab the bottom. They don't necessarily need to come right off. We just need access to the ignition and some of the components. The bottom one, it's easier if you just slip it right out. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the angle and getting it past the steering wheel and the little knobby down there. But this should be adequate. So we can see the ignition here, and we have I'll just wiggle this out, get that out of there. You can see the ignition here with the PATS key around it, or the PATS sensor. So the first thing we're going to want to do is unplug the PATS, which is this plug right there. Now, once that's out of there, then we're going to grab our little pick, and we can just gently pry off the PATS ring. Now, in our case, my cylinder, I can wiggle it to get it out, but if you can't, you're going to have to break it free. So whether that's hitting it with something in there, a screwdriver, or you may just have to completely destroy it. You will need to turn it one cycle over like that to get it out. So if your ignition is seized, you may need to get in there with a screwdriver. Before you do anything like that though, let's go ahead and get the PATS ring off of it, because we do not want to break this and turn this into a more expensive thing. So just gently get a pick and pry it off, nice and light. It should just wiggle off. We don't need to pry or do anything crazy. Just get those tabs off there and put it somewhere safe that you won't lose it. And then now you can see what we need to access. So to get the ignition out, we need to turn it one phase, just like that, and that is going to release the button that we can stick a pin in there and pull it out. So once you've stuck it in there, then the ignition just slides out like that. But you cannot do that unless you turn it. So you may have to get clever with destroying the ignition so that you can turn it and get the old one out. Once that's done, we can of course take the new ignition, line it up correctly, and it's just gonna slide in, snap in. Just press it, and we can get it lined up, and it's right in there. Same thing, just install it in the same pattern that you took it out. Now we have our new ignition that turns nice and slow, or nice and easy, I should say. Put the PATS ring back over top of it, snap it in there good. That way we can actually start the vehicle. That's going to be important. Plug the connector back in, replace the ignition, and the truck will start here, no problem. Nice and free, PATS is working good, so we install the shroud and everything is good to go. Thanks for watching this video. I do hope it helped you, and if it did, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and good luck with your project. Bye-bye.